Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about carbon emissions, carbon cycle, fossil fuels, why the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is increasing, how deforestation actually causes carbon to increase. Now many people think that plants um, turn carbon into energy, right? Many people, that's how they think. They increase the oxygen. Plants produce oxygen. That's what they think. But that's not really how it happens. Many people will think if you have like plants in your room, right? That's gonna produce oxygen, and that's not true whatsoever. When you have a plant in your room, what's gonna happen is the plant will actually make oxygen at during the day. But at night, what's going to happen is the plant is going to use that oxygen to burn the sugar that it produced during the day using the carbon dioxide. What the plant does is how plants make energy is they take water, they take carbon dioxide, they put these compounds in the chloroplast, which is like a factory, right? Then they use the sunlight as energy source, and they combine these two into sugar. But sugar isn't. You need to reveal the energy out of the sugar. Sugar itself isn't energy. You need oxygen to burn the sugar. Any reaction is called uh, with oxygen is called burning, technically. So they take the glucose and use the oxygen to burn it. Well, what happens when you burn it? The oxygen creates carbon dioxide. The oxygen gets locked up into carbon dioxide again. So goes back into the air. The plant does this at night. So if you have a plant in your room thinking that it's making oxygen, well, it's not. It's not. Then you might ask, how does deforestation and stuff like that cause more carbon dioxide being in the atmosphere if plants don't like destroy the carbon dioxide and make oxygen? Well, in a forest, uh, the plant makes itself out of carbon. Wood is like, I'm not sure if it's dry wood or like wet wood, but wood is like 50% carbon. So the carbon it takes and turns into sugar, some of that is taken up to build the structure of the plant, the wood, the leaves, the roots. The plant uses the sugar to build these. It makes cellulose out of the sugar, which then it uses to build itself, build the cell walls, builds just everything. Right? Main building structure of plants is cellulose, which has a lot of carbon in it. So that's how forests actually take up carbon. It They don't do that. Like if a plant is staying at the same size, it's not gaining, losing any mass. It's not changing the amount of carbon dioxide there is. Of course, if you chop this plant down and then you burn it for energy, you release the carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. And if you build a house in the place that you deforested, well, the tree is not going to grow back there. So you just caused more carbon dioxide to be released into the atmosphere. And another way these forests will lock up the carbon is when the leaves and the branches and the dead trees fall to the ground. A lot of the time, they will be decomposed by microorganisms. Microorganisms will take the cellulose, they will use the oxygen to burn it again and release the carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere and make energy for themselves. So it's just going to go back into the atmosphere when a plant dies. But that's not always what happens. Sometimes plants die in a and they get buried, or it's a poor oxygen environment, an environment where there isn't a whole lot of oxygen. So the microorganisms can't burn the cellulose for energy because there's no oxygen. There's no burning, there's no creating energy without the oxygen for these microorganisms. So what happens is the cellulose gets locked up into the soil, gets deeper into the soil, and yeah, turns into fossils and fossil fuels. That's how coal is produced by nature. The trees fall to the ground in an oxygen-free environment, so the fungi and the microbes can't digest it. They can't use it for energy, and it becomes coal deep into the soil. So the amount of carbon in the atmosphere is almost always reduced by these activities, right? By the production of fossil fuels. So when we go and dig up this coal and all the other fossil fuels, and burn them, we're reintroducing this carbon that was locked up who knows how many years ago, and we're reintroducing into the atmosphere. But the thing is, no creature on this planet was adapted to this level of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. While also you're reintroducing heavy metals and shit. That's why the oceans are so fucked up. We're taking this coal, we're burning it in factories, and the ash takes up the mercury, all the heavy metals. Then it goes into the soil. From there, it goes into the ocean, to the water sources, gets into the animals. That's why fish are heavily contaminated with mercury. Some people think it comes from the cans. No, it does not come from the cans. The heavy metals in the fish are there because of this exact thing. We burned these fossil fuels that were deep inside the soil. They were never meant to be burned. They're just meant to stay there. We take these up, and they're deep into the soil. They're contaminated with heavy metals. They're heavy. These metals are heavy, so they sink into the soil. They get in the coal. They get in the petrol, all the fossil fuels. When you burn it, you reveal, especially coal, you reveal the ash into the atmosphere. It fucks everything up. So you increase the carbon dioxide unnaturally. You're basically adding extra carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. You're reintroducing heavy metals. Same thing with natural gas. Same thing with petrol. When you burn these things, you reintroduce carbon into the atmosphere that was meant to be locked up forever, basically. Also heavy metals too. So yeah, that's why the planet is getting fucked up. That's why many species are dying out. That's why lots of animals are endangered. Not because there's too much hunting, but because we're destroying nature from the roots. Like, hunting can't really reduce the amount of animals that there are. Because when you hunt one animal, usually, almost always, it's instantly replaced by another animal. There was this study on, I think, moose meats. Wait, how do you say if moose is multiple? Like for goose, it's geese. For moose, is it meese? Wow, I've never thought about that before. Anyways, they did a study on meese, I guess. Multiple moose is... Oh, but you can't really say mooses, right? Whatever. You get what I'm saying. They did a study, and when wolves were reintroduced into the environment, the amount of moose actually increased, I think. Or it didn't decrease. It was something like that. The predators, they released predators. Logically, there should be less of them now. Well, but there weren't. It didn't affect it whatsoever, really. So it's far more complicated than that. You're not just gonna overhunt something to extinction. This blame on hunting that it's making animals go extinct is crazy. Stuff like deer are actually, there are too many of them because there aren't enough wolves. There aren't enough predators for them. We're throwing off the natural balance of things and blaming it on stuff like hunting and shit. Blaming carbon emissions on cows. How can animals make carbon emissions? Like, it's a cycle. Animals, what happens is, these animals eat the grass. The grass locks up the carbon from the atmosphere, right? And the animals eat the grass, they poop it out. The carbon, the poop gets maybe digested further by microorganisms. Whatever, like, it creates soil. If anything, it should be locking up the carbon. So this idea that animals are creating more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, that's ridiculous. It's from the unnatural thing that we're doing. There have been animals for as long as we know, and they have been eating plants and pooping and farting for an extremely long time too. So why is it a problem all of a sudden? Is it caused by the cows? No, it's fucking nuts. It's from this extra carbon that we're releasing into the atmosphere. This is a natural cycle. Plants lock up the carbon, animals eat the plants and reveal the carbon back into the atmosphere. Plants take it back up. Like, it's a cycle. It's a cycle. There isn't more carbon being produced. It's just being cycled here. But naturally, it would actually be getting locked up into the soil. Like, the amount of carbon would actually be reducing over time. Of course, sometimes it would increase because of stuff like volcanic activities, but never on a scale like this. We're constantly taking up this fossil fuel, this locked up carbon from the soil. We're burning it, and then we're wondering why the planet is getting so fucked up. It is crazy. It is crazy. Recently, this is going to be unrelated, but I've been thinking of like chemtrails, right? The chemtrail conspiracy. Are they really releasing all the chemicals in the atmosphere, or is it just this thing that we're doing? Burning the fossil fuels. I'm skeptical of the chemtrail theory. Like, can they really have that as a secret? The only proof is this that I saw is this video on Twitter. Some pilot. It could even be artificial intelligence. Talking. It's talking about like how they pick the pilots that have no families, so they feel okay about releasing all these poisons into the atmosphere, and that's how they're altering the weather. Well, in my opinion, they don't really need to do that. Like, we're doing that with the fossil fuels. We're taking all this carbon, all these heavy metals. Fossil fuels are full of heavy metals, man. They're deep into the soil. Heavy metals are heavy. They sink into the soil. When you take it up and you burn it, you reveal the heavy metals into the atmosphere. You reveal all sorts of chemicals into the atmosphere. Like in petrol, there are all sorts of chemicals. When you burn them, you create all sorts of poisons that are not meant to be released into the atmosphere like that. So yeah, that's probably what's happening. I honestly don't really think that chemtrails are real. That's not to say that I'm not open to the theory. If there is proof, I will certainly believe it, but I just haven't seen any proof for chemtrails. If I see proof, I'll believe it. And it's not that far out there, but I just don't think there needs to be chemtrails in order for us to be ruining the fucking planet. Like, we're doing enough. We have tons of fucking cars, tons of factories, tons of coal plants. Like, there doesn't need to be chemtrails on top of that for us to be ruining the atmosphere, to ruin the biosphere, right? We're taking all these heavy metals that were taken out, and the carbon taken out of the biosphere and buried deep into the soil, the crust, right? We live in the biosphere. Biosphere is the location that all life is in. Fossil fuels are not in the biosphere, it's deep into the soil. So when you burn it, you reintroduce it into the atmosphere, gets taken up by the plants, animals, mixed in the water, accumulates in the oceans. That's why fish are a huge problem. Many people think it's from the cans, but the cans are actually nowadays always lined with plastic. So when you're drinking Coke, eating canned tuna, you're not getting the heavy metals from the can. There isn't much heavy metals from the can, anyways. The can is made out of aluminum. Obviously, there will be some contamination, but it's not much. Also, if that was the case, you would be getting as much heavy metals from canned tuna, the same amount of heavy metals from canned tuna from the amount you get from Coke or like canned Fanta or something like sodas, energy drinks. But that's not the case because the mercury and all the heavy metals from fish is from the coal and all the fossil fuels that we burn, all the waste that gets dumped into the ocean, all the coal that burns and just throws the mercury into the air. Then it's mixes with the rain, goes into the underground waters, pours back into the ocean. It's very fucked up. That's why fish are very problematic. Also, bigger fish like tuna accumulates a lot of mercury. I'm gonna talk about that later. They accumulate a lot of mercury because they're higher up on the food chain. Think about it. 1,000 planktons, let's say. A fish eats like in a lifetime. How many planktons will a fish eat? Like a small fish, let's say an anchovy, right? How many planktons is it going to eat? It's going to be more than its body weight, right? It's going to be times and times more than its body weight. Like, let's say, think about yourself. How much meat do you eat in 1 year? Let's say you only eat meat and you eat like, you're a small person. Let's say you eat 500 grams. Well, you're going to eat your body weight in a very short period of time. So the fish, they eat these planktons. They eat more than their body weight, far, far more than their body weight in a lifetime. And what they eat has planktons because of the mercury content in the water. Just mercury just gets in these planktons. And when the fish eats these, it accumulates the mercury because no animal is adapted to get rid of this much mercury, because in no place in history fossil fuels were being burned into the atmosphere. In no point in history before we started doing it that was happening. So animals get fucked up by that. Mercury gets accumulated in the fish that eat the planktons more so than the planktons. And the next step on the food chain, a bigger fish that eats these anchovies, let's say a salmon. I'm just talking like, I don't know if salmon eats anchovies, right? It's a bigger fish. Salmon eat these anchovies, and so they accumulate more mercury in their tissue because they're going to eat far more mercury than their own body weight. They're going to be exposed to far more mercury than the anchovies were exposed to. So therefore, they're going to have more mercury in their flesh. And the what eats the salmon is going to accumulate even more mercury in their system. Let's say tuna. Tuna come and eat the salmon. They're going to accumulate even more mercury. And let's say sharks come and eat the tuna. There's even going to be more mercury in the sharks. That's why um, that's why tuna, shark, swordfish is not recommended for pregnant women because they have a lot of mercury in them. Some people think it's fine to eat it when it's raw or some bullshit. Well, then why do the tuna accumulate the mercury in the first place? Tuna don't cook their food. Then why does it accumulate in their flesh? It's just very stupid thinking. Arjunus is just really stupid when it comes to heavy metals. Like he has some crazy ideas. This is one of them. That eating the fish raw is going to solve the mercury problem, and or that it comes from the cans or some shit. Wild, crazy conspiracies like that. It's just fucking stupid, man. That's how we're. This is how we're fucking up the earth. It's not gonna be fine if you eat the fish raw. Maybe it's worse when you cook it. Then you could argue that. You could argue that maybe when you cook the fish, the mercury is even more bioavailable somehow. I don't know a way that would make it more bioavailable, but maybe you do. You could say that, but you can't say that it would be fine. Like tuna eats raw fish, right? They still bioaccumulate mercury. It doesn't come from the can. The can is lined with plastic. The can is aluminum, like the can isn't made out of mercury. Right? There can be some contamination in the can, but we don't see this contamination in sodas or other canned stuff that are not fish. Also, when you test non-canned tuna, there's just as many heavy metals in that. So it's stupid to suggest that. So yeah, I guess it's not a good idea to eat tuna anyways. Like our ancestors would at no point have eaten tuna anyway, so it's not necessary, but it's not that bad either. You should, anyways, what I'm trying to say is be aware of fish. Just because you're eating it raw and not in a can doesn't mean you're getting less heavy metals. You're getting just as much heavy metals because the heavy metals come from the fossil fuels that we burn and the waste that we dump into the oceans, the ores that we mine. We mine all these ores, the waste gets exposed to the surface, it gets mixed into the water. That's how it gets into the oceans. Yeah, thanks for listening to me talk about this stuff. I hope I helped you understand that animals, cows don't create more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. That's ridiculous to suggest. What creates more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is burning these fossil fuels that were locked up years ago, and also the heavy metals on top of that, and all the other poisons. Yeah, hope this video was helpful.